Today, I want to talk about things to avoid when setting up your inflatable bounce house or any inflatable for that matter. Um, when we're looking at, obviously, all the inflatables have the rules and regulations, and they have their installation manuals, and we've all studied that and looked at it. But I don't know if we have a clear understanding as to why these things are in place, and more importantly, our employees may not understand why. And it's important to explain to them why these things are in place and why they mean so much. Um, the first thing is wind, and we all have this understanding that at 15 miles an hour, inflatables can uh, become unstable in a windy environment, and um, it's not safe to install them beyond that. But do we understand what happens with the dynamics of wind and what causes the situation to occur? Um, I did a little bit of research and I found out that there's lots of stuff that has an effect on the force that is exerted um, by wind. Temperature and the speed of the wind, the pressure, um, the air surface area that the wind is pushing against. All of these have an effect. Well, with the inflatables, the issue is that there's such a large surface area that it creates a situation where it's almost like a parachute. And I know that that's kind of an oversimplification of what's going on, but what we have to understand is that putting all the numbers into the formula, this is how they came up with that magic number of 15 miles an hour. Putting all the magic numbers into the formula on a 10 by 10 surface area, um, there is 50 pounds, a little bit over 50, it's about 58 pounds of pressure exerted onto an inflatable. Now, if you're talking about a bounce house that only weighs 120 pounds, then at 58 pounds, you're close to half of the weight of the unit, and it is enough for it to tip the unit over or move it over. Here's the problem. That's what 100 square foot of area, which is basically 10 by 10. Most inflatables have a bigger area than that. And once the unit begins to tip, something pretty dramatic happens. And that is that the bottom, which is probably the most solid piece of the inflatable, becomes exposed. And that adds to this surface area and accelerates it to a point where there's really, no going back. So the main point here is that it's not something that you can alleviate. It's not something that you control or something you can fix. Basically, if you have an inflatable and the wind is high, it is going to cause a problem. And it doesn't matter how many stakes you have on it. It doesn't matter how much weight you have on it or any of that, because what happens is that it creates a situation where it will find the surface area that it needs to flip or become airborne and cause problems and injuries. The customer, I want to warn you guys, you are the expert. So before we get any further, we need to understand that you and or your employees who are representing you are the experts. And this is what the court is going to see. This is what the judge is going to see. This is in any kind of suit. This is what they're going to see. So you just allowing the customer to say, oh, no, it's no big deal. Just put it there. You don't have to stake it down. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do that. Knowing what you know, is going to create a situation where the court is going to look at you and say, you are the expert. You were the one that were supposed to know. The customer didn't know. And the customer is, is reacting from a point of no knowledge or ignorance of the situation, of the safety of the situation. So they can't be at fault. You should have known better. So you are at fault. When we're dealing with uh, things like wind and weather, uh, you can't. There's no second guess, and there's no way around it. And I get it. Nobody wants to lose money, but you certainly do not want to be sued over something that you should know better about. Um, Something that you can do is do a little bit of research on your own and look and see what the dynamics of wind are, and you can even look up one of the calculators. Some of the interesting things that I found is that temperature can control that as well. The higher the temperature, um, the lower the wind speed is necessary to, cause this unhinging or unbalancing of the unit. Pressure as well. So if you're at a higher elevation, um, it takes obviously a higher wind speed at a higher elevation as opposed to a lower elevation. Most of all the calculators have a base at sea level, and we're not too far off of it where I'm at, so it's not that big of a deal. So just some interesting things. Do your research and kind of look it up and see what you can find about it. And you would be shocked and surprised. And the fun thing is you'll be able to explain this to the customer. It's not just a matter of, well, the insurance guy said no, or I don't really know what the deal is, but this is what it is. That never works. If you come from a place of knowledge, your customer will have a better understanding and a better um, ability to forgive the situation, knowing that you know what you're talking about and you're not in a situation where you're just making excuses. Along that same route, um, we need to make sure that we are placing the unit as flat as possible. It's probably one of the bigger things that I have going on here is that in the state that I'm in, it's a lot of hilly areas. It's not too steep, but it is a situation where it's very hilly. Even in someone's front yard, there's always a slope. Again, the problem that this creates is that your unit is placed on an unstable foundation. It's designed to sit flat so that all sides are kind of accepting the weight and the pressures of whatever action is going on. If it's be a slide or a bounce or whatever, the kids are shifting their weights. And the problem that you run into is that you're going to look there and you're going to see these little 5-year-old kids, and you're going to say, well, they don't weigh that much. It's not going to be a big deal. And then you're going to leave, and guess what's going to happen? The biggest teenager in the neighborhood or the parents or somebody adult size is going to get on it with them or after them or whatever. And they're going to create that situation that makes that instability. So do not ever believe that you know what's going to happen after you leave. If you're dropping your units and going, I promise you, anything and everything that you can imagine horrible that could happen is probably going to happen. So you need to plan for those situations. The placement of your unit is very, very important. I'm going to show you this picture in this video of the placement of one of the units that we did, and it is 100% wrong simply because it is in a situation where not only is it too close to a fence and too close to a deck support, um, it is also in a position where someone can traverse the deck, which is above, onto the unit. Don't think for an instant that they are not going to do this, especially if you're talking about kids. If the people tell you that they want you to set it up next to the trampoline, you know what's going to happen. you know they're going to jump from the trampoline onto the unit, and it's going to create a situation that's unsafe. Now, you're not there to stop it from happening, but you see it during the setup, so you should know how to handle that and how to fix that. Don't put it in a situation where it's going to be in that place where the kids can use and abuse it, because they are going to, and you know that they're going to. I've made several kind of joking memes about how people, use the roof of their house as a slide, and do these kind of things. They do these kind of things, and they will do these kind of things. You've seen the videos where they're jumping off of houses onto inflatables because they see this on TV as some kind of game, or some kind of stunt, where this inflatable is going to be used as some kind of support device, or catch device, and it's just not designed for that, and it's going to create a situation where they get hurt, and your equipment is going to get damaged. So if you can avoid a situation where placement will allow those kind of activities, then avoid it at all costs. Now, the customer is going to tell you where they want it, but are you telling the customers where it needs to be? Because that's what has to happen. I absolutely take the customer's uh, thoughts into consideration for the placement of the unit, but that is not the catch-all. Where they want it isn't an absolute, especially if it's a situation where it's unsafe, or it's a situation where it's not a good placement. Level ground, at least 5 foot. And the reason that you want a 5 foot around the unit, take a bounce house, for instance. How many have you seen where you have older kids that get into a bounce house and they all push on one wall, and the wall collapses, not the unit, but the wall collapses, and they fall down into this pocket? And we've all seen this, and we've all, the kids laugh and think that it's hilarious and it's funny, and it's all that. There's nothing that you can do to stop that from happening if there's enough weight placed onto one of those walls. It's just the way that the unit is designed. It will only take so much side to side force. So when they put that pressure on there and they fall that direction, guess what? They can fall up against the fence. Remember the fence that's right next to it, or the post that's right next to it, or whatever. You create a situation where these kids can fall and hit their head on the post, or on a fence or something like that. You're creating the situation where they can get injured. So make sure you do not put a unit in a situation where you don't have the clearance around it, and that goes for above it as well. Making sure that you don't have limbs, you don't have power lines, that you don't have these kind of things. All of that can be an issue, because again, what will happen is that children will do what children do. If you have a tall slide and it's close to a tree, they're going to either try to jump from the slide to the tree, or from the tree to the slide. You're not going to be able to stop that. So the best thing to do to avoid it is move it away from those things. Make sure you have plenty of clearance. And also, if those things can't be avoided, you need to make sure that the renter, the homeowner, or whoever's in charge is aware of it, so that they can keep an eye on it as well. Your cords and your blower are super important. You need to use whatever means necessary to make sure that, number one, you're not creating a trip hazard with your cords. Number two, you're not putting some kind of electrical device or cord or something in a puddle where it can create a shock, or that pets can get to it and chew on it and be shocked or whatever. Those kind of things all need to be mind. You need to think about that prior to doing it. You can bring extra mats to put over the cords in case you're going over a sidewalk, or you can put some of those cord steps whatever you need to do to make sure that you're creating a situation where they're not going to be tripping over this cord. If you have to go, off the opposite side of a porch and underneath some stairs so that you're avoiding, having a trip point near the stairs, or whatever you got to do what you have to do to make sure that you put the cord in such a way, even if it does go a few feet further, so that they're not crossing that path and not creating a place where they can trip. Also, on the ground around the unit and underneath the unit, you need to make sure that there's nothing there that's going to create a problem with the unit. Nothing sharp, nothing, no bamboo shards that are sticking up, or there's just a million things that can come up, rocks or glass, or whatever. Any of that stuff can damage the unit, and it also can injure the kids if they're getting on and off, and get in a situation where they become, they fall off the unit and onto whatever you're talking about, whether it be gravel or concrete or something like that. You need to make sure that you're doing what you can do to try to mitigate some of the injuries that could occur. This also goes for dog waste or cat waste. If you see it, don't set your unit in it, because there's a lot of diseases that can be transferred, through the spread of dog waste. So just simply, scooping it up with a pooper scooper or something like that is probably not going to be enough. I suggest that you cover it with some kind of tarp. If you have to absolutely put it in the area that the dog is using the bathroom, make sure you cover it with a tarp, so you're not creating a situation where they're walking in it and spreading it into the unit and back and forth. You can also, like I said, look for a different location for it that's not in the area where the dog. You need to go by the recommendations of the unit. If the unit has a weight limit or height limit or something like that, the manufacturer has that there for a purpose, and that purpose is that they've designed this unit with those kind of things in mind. So if somebody's a larger person, and the unit is only designed for 100 pounds, you need to let them know that they can't be on it, because it's going to create a situation where the unit can be damaged, or they can get hurt because it's not designed to hold their weight. Those kind of things seem like that they should be commonplace, and it's common knowledge, but sometimes you have to remind the homeowners and the renters of what the situation is and what you're doing, so that they know, and can't deny, that they had any knowledge of what was going on. I like to take pictures of my setup, and we do a lot of video and stuff like that. And a lot of that is for my benefit as well, to show that I have set it up and right. And it also gives me an opportunity. I can't be everywhere at once, and I do quite a few units. So, but if I get my guys to kind of tape their setup, I can see some things and let them know, hey, we need to work on this, or we need to do this a little better, so that they're continuing to get better and better at the things that they're doing, and creating a situation where it's a safer environment for the inflatable. And that's going to keep me out of trouble. And that's huge, as far as, the bottom line of this is that none of that has a bonus side to it. There's no good side to, someone getting hurt on your stuff. There's no way out of that's going to be not painful on both sides. So if you can avoid it by doing it right to begin with, that's probably the best way to go. You need to make sure that you have an understanding of the rules of your inflatable, and this is probably something that's more important for you to pass on to whoever's going to stay with the unit. I have the rules and regulations of the inflatables posted onto my contract, also with signage at the unit, so that there's no denying what the rules are, and that, you know, what the parents know that they have to do for the rules in order to maintain the safe environment for their kids. If you do this kind of stuff, again, what you're doing is you're safeguarding your position as the renter, and you know, avoiding that situation where you as the expert didn't do your part to try to mitigate, you know, some of the problems that come from, you know, people using inflatables improperly. And again, kids are going to do what kids want to do. They want to have fun, and they're going to try to do everything in their power to make it exciting. So thanks, I appreciate your time, and if you like these videos, please subscribe.